Mark P.J. Nadon, welcome to Suit Up the Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
I'm really excited. You have a fantastic backdrop, I have to say. I'm the person that when I watch like a video version of an interview or I see you post a picture, I'm like zooming in to like read the titles on the bookshelves.
Well, that's good because it's actually my podcast guests that I circulate my podcast guests, and because like one book goes here, that book goes here, that book goes here. So I'm glad you do.
It's awesome. And hey, The Treatment Room is an incredible read. We're here to talk about this today, but before we get to that, would you mind sharing just a brief biographical sketch with the audience?
A biographical sketch of me.
Yes.
As a writer, well, I've had a lot of jobs as a writer. I would say I started writing when I was about 18. Started in fantasy because I actually was a big fan of Terry Brooks and I
Oh,
loved the escapism of
mhm.
fantasy. And I did that for a long time. My first bunch of books I wrote were actually fantasy books. Never got published or anything. I just wrote a bunch of books. And then eventually I got into thrillers. I started reading John Grisham. I like the
Mhm.
fast-paced nature. I like that we got to go, the shorter chapters, less world building, which kind of wore on me a little bit in
Mhm.
fantasy. And then and then I just started from there getting into writing my own thriller stories. And then recently I had some tough times in my life and my son came to me and I always tell him I want to publish books and he said, "Well, why haven't you published this one?" Which was the Genesis Project, my first book. And I was like, I didn't have an excuse for him. So here I am. I ran out of excuses. So I started getting editors and publishing books and here we go.
That's awesome. I think that writing, I remember there's a quote by James Clear that's essentially an unfinished project cannot change you. And recently I hit the 4 year mark on when I published my first book. And I was just thinking about how even though that first book is like this romance novel, like it's nothing special, but if I didn't write that, I wouldn't have gotten where I am today. And it's just amazing how finishing and doing that thing can just be transformational as a person.
Yeah. Did you write that? Is that your first novel, you mean? Like your
Hmm.
romance novel was the first, oh wow, 4 years. Well, that's really good. It took me like 8 years to write my very first novel. It was the fantasy and it was like 180,000 words or some monstrosity. I
Okay,
haven't looked at it again, but
well, that's the thing. Fantasy, I always have so much respect. It's a genre I have like a back and forth relationship with because I'll read some fantasy. Like I love the Spellmonger series by Terry Mancour, but like I've never read Brandon Sanderson or any of like the my wife hates it. I've tried reading Fellowship of the Ring a dozen times. It's just it's not my thing.
yeah.
But so hats off. I mean, like being able to work on developing a world is a huge thing. And honestly, I think that shows very much in the treatment room because you have to build out what are the rules for this thriller universe? What are the things that perhaps stretch the imagination? If you don't mind my asking, so like I know there is a bit of a through line from the Genesis Project to the treatment room. How did
Yeah.
we get from one to the other?
Well, the Genesis Project was the virtual reality therapy for soldiers treating post-traumatic stress. The treatment room was supposed to be Genesis Project Book Two, but I didn't want to go into I didn't want to have military thriller readers not
Hmm.
interested because it wasn't military thriller enough. And then
Hmm.
psychological thrillers readers not interested because it was military. It's a subgenre. It's the whole marketing thing, right?
Hmm.
So I decided to make the treatment room kind of stand alone. I took it away from the military and put it into a commercial setting. And then that was kind of the line from my original concept of let's help soldiers, and that went terribly wrong with virtual reality therapy. And then now let's help people with therapy. And of course, it also goes a little bit wrong.
I really appreciate that because I think you talk to a lot of authors on your podcast too. The range of seeing someone that is intentional about what who am I writing for and what am I writing from the beginning makes such a huge difference compared to, oh, well, sometimes people just have a book idea, they write the book and it just takes off. But far more often, they finish the book and realize they wrote it to no audience at all and
Yeah.
are like, please read my book
Yeah.
rather than knowing, okay, this is the segment, this is the genre elements I'm trying to hit. and this is the audience for it.
Yeah, it took me time to get there. I made all the mistakes. That advice of write what you love. If you what you love is commercially successful, like romance and romantasy and certain genres, then by all means go write what you love. But when what you love is no one else is writing and nobody's interested in, that becomes very dangerous advice. I wrote the Genesis project. Then I went into, so I did not take my own advice. I'm learning the hard way. I went into a post-apocalyptic trilogy and wrote a trilogy in post-apocalyptic world. I guess you could say my fantasy roots kind of took over, but it was
Yeah.
post-apocalyptic. And then I came back to this when I was like, okay, I got to stop. I can't ju keep jumping genres and writing all these books because my own audience, who I'm trying to attract with the Genesis
Hmm.
Project in the beginning, then I made this huge shift and people were like, whoa, what was that? Many people still liked it, but I'm sure I lost a
Hmm.
lot. And now I come back to this one and I mean, it's done very well. It's been a good launch, but I'm sure I could have done a lot better. So any writers out there that are listening, stick with one genre. If you want to jump genres, do a pen name would be my advice, unless it's a very subtle shift in subgenres, not a whole like what I did.
Well, I think that's one of the cool things of seeing what mutual friend Andrew Warren did is, if I remember correctly, he has his
Yeah.
sci-fi books, which are under like A.A. Warren or something
Yeah.
like that. It's a slight variance on his name, so he has like the whole different segment of his market that way.
Yeah. And I've considered unpublishing the trilogy and republishing it under like M. Dot Nadon, the same thing that he did. He inspired me. I had him on this show too, and he on my show, and he inspired me as well to take that. But when you look at how much work it is to try and
Hmm.
build like now I
Oh
need a
dear
new
goodness. Yeah.
newsletter and I need a new social media and I need like he does it, which is great, but it's so much.
I don't think people appreciate, like, just casual readers have no idea how much work goes into trying to build essentially the brand of a writer. And I'm
Yeah.
really curious. So is AI, not AI, sorry, I just listened to your interview with TD Severin, which was, can I say, so awesome because 100% as I'm reading the treatment room, I'm like, this is a wonderful like double feature with Deadly Vision in so many different ways. It was so cool to listen to the two of you like chat on your podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved having him. I mean, I had him on my show when with Deadly Vision, and then I asked him to come back to interview me as a takeover, which was a lot of fun. He's such a great guy, and his book is it's a great medical, like his obviously medical virtual
Hmm.
reality, you could say, and the technology that he uses. So yeah, very,
Hmm.
very similar, and he's a lot of fun.
Virtual reality, like what was it that kind of attracted you into that sphere? Like obviously started in Genesis project, but where and when did that kind of start to place a spot in your brain?
Good question. I think it would have been. It's probably through gaming. I game with
Hmm.
my son,
Oh,
and
cool.
we, yeah, he's like 15 now, but this was a long time ago. But I game with him, so we do PC games, but we also have
Hmm.
VR headsets, and we
Hmm.
we play like VR headset games. And I think part of that is sometimes when I'm in those games, I was playing a game recently, and this is going a little bit off topic, but it's called Xfil. And you go in and you have a backpack and you're trying to like grab as much gear as you can. You have guns and you're, doing the shooting, you're getting killed, whatever happens. And then I was out of the game and I went for a run with a dog and I saw a guy with a backpack and it just sparked in my mind, like, what's in his backpack? I wonder if he's got a bunch of stuff in his backpack that, I need to exfil with. So it's funny how VR,
Hmm.
I'm fascinated by how VR, how real it can feel and
Hmm.
how much fun it can be to explore the impact it can have on people. And of course, in this story, it's a darker story. It's questioning autonomy and things like that. But I love the idea of virtual reality. Of course, it started with gaming for me, but
Hmm. A couple of things I have to shout out in the treatment room. The first being, I just got married last year. We're coming up on our second anniversary. The every moment where Amara is talking about her shoes, I'm like, obviously, Mark has someone in his life that really likes fashionable shoes, which, by the way, any men listening, the prettier the shoe looks, the worse it feels, is what I am told. Because
yeah,
my wife just bought cute new boots. We got like just down the block. And she's like, these things are killing me. I'm like, oh, funny you say that. I just read this book.
Yeah. That's a funny story because you know how if you've read Deadly Vision, so you know the chocolate story of
Yes.
how like his character when the more stressed he gets, the more he chocolate like the type of cocoa or whatever gets more intense. When I came up with the shoe idea, I wanted the shoes to be the more stressed out she got, the different shoes that she wore, the higher end the shoes. I didn't quite, it's kind of subtle in there. I
Hmm.
didn't quite do it. I have to credit a beta reader, a good friend of mine who did a lot of the research on the shoes that she was like, "Oh, I'll do the research for you." And she sent me this huge document of these different shoes and when you may want to read how much they cost, when you may want to wear them, the complaints and like yeah, she did a fabulous job. So I took a lot of that research and then applied it to the treatment room and Amara's point of view.
I love it because, again, it's little facts like that that make characters feel really real. And all the characters in the treatment room feel genuinely real, believable characters that you're on this ride with, rather than sometimes I don't know, open a book and you're like, oh, here's archetype number 3 that I'm reading about doing plot trope number 5. And obviously, I'm happy when it's that and I'm enjoying it, but it's really painful when it's that and I'm not enjoying it. You have done such a great job in the treatment room of marrying character and plot in such a wonderful way.
Thank you. Yeah, writing this one has been a joy, and it was probably the easiest book I would say I wrote. And
Hmm.
a lot of that comes from because of how personal the characters are to me. I know, you know how they had the advice, write what you know?
Yes.
Obviously, I don't know virtual reality therapy, but I knew I'm a rock climber, so it probably
Hmm.
comes across a bit with Lucas's point of view and his rock climbing. I'm a marathon runner, so with Amara and her goal to marathon run, I have dogs and I love dogs, so her dog tucks like that. All the interplay and the feeling of the characters,
Hmm.
Amara's trust issues, like a lot of those things, I know and I've felt. That's one
Hmm.
of the things about as you get older as a writer and you felt a lot more of these things. You can I think it's easier to genuinely write a
Hmm.
character that feels real because you've lived and experienced so many more types of situations and people and unfortunately in some cases trauma and that really helps build the characters.
Well, I'm trying to remember. I think it was Matt Bird's book, The Secrets of Story and The Secrets of Character. I think it was Secrets of Character. He made a comment about everyone says write what you know. He's like write what you know how to feel because it's
Yeah.
those emotions and feelings which connect readers to a character. And I think that you've done a fabulous job with it. So I reached out to TD Severin and I was like, Todd, I'm interviewing Mark. One of my favorite things from Tim Ferriss's podcast was he'd reach out to mutual acquaintances. Do you have a question? What should I ask him about? So Todd said I should ask you about your craziest rock climbing story.
Oh, craziest rock climbing story. Do I have any crazy ones?
What got you into rock climbing? Because like again, I think that
Mhm.
I love that it's Lucas's hobby here because it's something that makes it very unique for an individual. Like it's not generic. Rock climbing is a very specific type of activity. So like what got you into it?
Yeah, well, my son got in, just wanted to try a different activity. And he was like, I'd like to rock climb. And then he got competitive with it. And as you know, with anything in competitive, you have to be there all the time. So I just kind of fell in love with it too. It's funny with a sport like rock climbing, if you love rock climbing, then a crazy story doesn't seem crazy to you. Like if I go up on the roof, like you can
Hmm.
climb a wall and then go on the roof and I'm hanging upside down and something
Yeah.
goes wrong and I fall by my clip and I end up swinging and smashing into a wall. Like, sure, that's happened a lot, right? But to me, that's not a crazy, to a rock climber, that's not a crazy story. That's just like Monday. So I don't have any like crazy near-death stories. Most of my rock climbing, just like Lucas's, comes from bouldering, like indoor gyms, bouldering, which is no rope, or lead climbing, which is with
Hmm.
clipping in as you go along. So I don't really have any crazy stories, but I've certainly like the moments with Alex Honnold that were in the virtual reality experience and
Hmm.
Magnus Mitbo. Those are people I've watched, I've followed, I love their stuff, so I threw them into the book to make that VR sequence come to life.
Okay, I loved it because again, I don't know anything about the sport of rock climbing, but as you're describing it, I'm like, oh, this is totally a thing. These are obviously real rock climbing celebrities. And
Yeah.
I just thought it was really neat that you included that in the book.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it was fun. It was, yeah. I loved writing those moments. Those are some of my favorite moments from the book. That, and I think I would say the favorite moment for me writing was Lucas's first immersive experience, which
Hmm.
is supposed to be the Smash Room,
Yes.
where it's essentially like beat the crap out of a bunch of things to get your stress out in virtual reality, so there's no mess. And he's in that the what's it called? The
It's like a coliseum, right? Like a,
Coliseum, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so he's in the Coliseum and and I pictured if you ever watched Richard Gere in that movie Camelot or King
Oh, yes.
Arthur or whatever it
First
was.
night.
First Night,
First night,
yeah.
which I maintain great Connery performance. I've never been a big Richard Gere fan, so I'm just like, what? We have like two different things here.
Yeah.
But yes, that film.
So there's that scene where Richard Gere climbs up on the platform and starts
Yes.
doing all these things that nobody else can do. So that's what I got with Lucas. That's I loved writing that, where Lucas is like dodging and punching and the audience is going crazy. And of course that sets off the whole manipulation, like what's
Hmm.
better marketing ploy than to have someone so excited and so pumped up and needing to come back like a
Hmm.
drug than that scene. But I really loved writing that one.
I absolutely adored that section just because it feels so, again, immersive when you're reading the segment, but then also it fits so well into this is what we would be using this for in therapy to a certain degree. Like
Yeah.
it's just kind of shocking when I go, wait, but that is like how so many games work, and this is how it can become so addicting. Like I know that just scrolling on my phone every time I see a like I'm like, oh, my little brain goes, whoo, excitement. Imagine if I am just like beating the crap out of like a virtual monster and there's a crowd cheering. And I
Yeah.
think that's the thing that I just found so fascinating and poignant is we do crave an audience. We do crave cheering on that massive level. And unless you're in that huge professional sports arena, very few of us will ever experience that level of applause.
Yeah.
And it's just shocking. Oh, there's a reason why like the gladiators of the past were like deities almost to the common man. And
Yeah.
then we think about we do the same thing with our sports figures today.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Good or bad, they get booed. Therapy is set up to only be,
That's
in this
true.
case, therapy was set up to
So only be the good
supposedly only
part.
be good. Yeah, that was part of the research was one of the big things for the research was looking up what exists today in virtual
Hmm.
reality. How are they doing therapy using,
Hmm.
because virtual reality therapy is actually real. They do it
Oh, it
now.
is.
It's just not immersive in the sense
Hmm.
that it is in the book. So they'll take people, they'll put goggles on. So just like you see,
Yeah.
like what's available today, they put goggles on, but they'll take someone who's afraid of heights and they'll
Hmm.
walk them up a staircase. And that person will like look down and they're trying to deal with their
Hmm.
heights. Maybe they have to back up via the controllers.
Hmm.
And then they get higher. And then as this person continues through therapy, they get higher and higher. And then they get them to walk on a balance beam, like as they're performing this therapy to try and get their fear of heights. Like that's an example of the therapy that exists today. So it
Wow.
really wasn't a huge jump from therapy in the
Yeah.
now to therapy in the book until I, like, demonized it, I guess.
Well, okay, I think that that's fascinating about these. It feels like that thing of like classic 90s, 2000s movies where they're like a few short years from now is
Yeah.
usually like the pitch. It's the technology that's just on the edge of what we have. And I think that you did such a brilliant job of this feels absolutely 100% riveted to now, and we're just on the edge of this becoming popular. It's becoming everywhere, is what
Yeah.
I expect when I read it. What was it like writing the dual perspectives? Because I thought that was a really great device in the story to alternate between Lucas and Amara.
It was an enjoyable process. I liked putting together the two very different personalities, their different approaches
Hmm.
to the what they viewed as the technology and to the story in itself. Amara going basically to the top
Hmm.
almost, and you almost expect you hope there's no villain caricature. I mean, I don't want to give spoilers, but you hope as you're reading that the CEO isn't the big ha villain and that's how it ends. And and then Lucas being the psychologist, which brings that other dimension. Yeah, it was a really good experience. I think it was the hard thing about writing the dual perspective for me is I have a terrible memory. So I use Scrivener to
Hmm.
organize my process. So I will go from chapter to chapter and I'll have to click on like the folder for Amara and look at, but when I'm writing her and look at like, okay, these are the things. She's outgoing. She has her shoe thing. She has
Hmm.
this. She has this. And then I'll start writing her and be like, okay, I'm Amara. And then I'll go to Lucas and do the same. Okay, he's more closed off. He depends mostly on his sister. He's not very
Hmm.
social. So then I have to start like, now, okay, now I'm Lucas. No, let's go.
Well, I think that again, you threaded the needle so well on that because the main thing I've learned that I've started becoming more critical on when I read books is do I feel like, especially when there are multiple characters, is everyone just a variation on the author? In like when I read it, do I feel like these are individual entities? And I think you did such a great job of making sure that the two personalities never feel like they're the same. They very clearly are distinct. They have two different ways of viewing the world. And yet they have sibling relationships. Like there, you have segments where they text back and forth. And as someone who has multiple siblings, I found it really funny when the characters are shooting back and forth poop emoji,
Yeah.
because these are the things you do when you have siblings.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are I loved throwing those in. I have four sisters, so I very much know what the that experience is like with the text messaging and stuff and yeah. It was fun to throw that in, and that was like the light in the dark. I think that's like
Mhm,
one of those moments where, like, t to me, Tux and their relationship is a light in the dark. And I've been asked
mhm,
before, why didn't you have, with everything those two have been through, Amara and Lucas, why didn't they hate each other? Lucas very easily could have
mhm,
disliked Amara because of she came in and ruined his life or that back
mhm,
in the day. But I wrote it instead to bring light in that dark where like they're each other's light. And I wanted,
mhm,
even if it's not super obvious, you can tell in the text messaging that they like each other. And that brings light to a story. Same with Tux I mean,
mhm,
there'll always be a dog in my story, I think, but because I love dogs, including dogs in the story. But like he's like that, comic relief almost
mhm.
everything's tense and dark and you feel like, oh my gosh, this is going horribly wrong. And then, there comes text to lick someone's face or jump on somebody or have this cute little interaction with security as he's, walking into a building or whatever.
Well, I think that that just brings it so much more true to life. Is very few times are circumstances so bleak that there isn't something we can humans naturally look for what's amusing or the incongruity of life. And having that moment of release where something amusing happens mirrors more of what life experience is.
Yeah.
I want to segue a little bit here because it's not often I get to interview other podcasters. So if you don't mind my asking, would you
Yeah.
mind telling the audience, first of all, about your podcast and then when did you start it?
Yeah, the Thriller Pitch podcast. It's I call it the director's cut of the thriller book world. So we go
Great, great catchphrase.
So we go into just like that. We go into what nobody knows about what's happening behind the scenes of a book, just like you would a movie when you go. Well, you used to be able to go to a movie, and back in the CD days, I'm dating myself, but you put in the DVD, and the extra disc came with it, and you'd watch all the extras. So that extra disc is essentially what I do with thriller books and thriller authors. And it started in July last year. I started it in July last year. Andrew Warren, funny enough, we were just talking about him, was my first guest on the show. He was kind enough to jump in on that with me, and it's taken off from there. It's gone really well. It's been a lot of fun. Just
Awesome.
like you, I'm sure it's not only are we learning so much about books and the
Hmm.
characters that we love, but we also get to talk to authors about their approaches, and it's so inspiring to see so many different modes and methods of the way people
Hmm.
approach it. And someone will say to me like, "Oh, I could never do this," and then I'll say, "Well, that's actually exactly what I do." And we had these just fascinating conversations. It's so much fun.
I think that I've questioned this a lot because I did a podcast before Suit Up, talking agriculture stuff because as I mentioned off air, I work in the organic certification world. So like I do agriculture things. But there's something so enjoyable about having conversations with people. I think that the
Yeah.
podcast medium is just such a great opportunity to dig beneath the surface. Like you put it, I like the idea of it's like the DVD extras because I don't know about you. I miss being able to have like the bonus feature commentary track
Yeah.
over a film or an episode of TV. We've been rewatching How I Met Your Mother, and I always love when I pull out the DVDs, being able to go, oh, it's got commentary track to the pineapple episode. Can't wait to hear about it.
Yeah. I'm waiting for Netflix or somebody to do that to add that to the
Oh,
streaming. It's got to come, right? Like someone's
yeah.
got. I don't know what the, how much extra work it takes to have the director like talking about the scene, but why wouldn't you throw that in there as another streaming
Hmm.
bonus? And I don't know. It's not there yet, but I imagine it will be there someday.
I also like it when books these days, especially special edition options now, are starting to come with the like extra chapter at the end with like author's notes of, oh, these were the things I was working on, etc. Which
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious because like I'm sure that you have the same thing. When you finish writing a book, there's like all those like scrap notes that get like piled in the folder that you put everything in. I'm not familiar with using Scrivener, but I assume it has like spots where you put all this extra data in too.
Yeah, it's like like if you imagine File Explorer where you're going like C drive, this folder, this
Uh-huh.
folder. Yeah, it's basically that, but it's a lot faster because I can just, you can have two distinct you can have like first screen, second screen kind of thing, and then
Oh, cool.
you can have like what I did here and what I did here to compare the two. And then yeah, that's basically just a filing system. But I have all my books in the same filing system. I can click on a book, I can click on a character, I can tell you like who that person was and when they were born, and everything is just in that. I'm a very organized person. So
Hey, that's I know that you can write without being organized. Plenty of people do, but it helps to be organized.
yeah. Yeah, it's my little my Bible. And even then I have that same reader I was telling you about that did the shoe thing. She loves to go through and somehow she finds everything that I said or did that wasn't congruent with something I said or did later. So, and with the treatment room, funny thing is that the notes for if you look at the synopsis for the original synopsis for that book, it actually
Hmm.
went further than the book
Mm.
ended, but I wasn't going to write another 50,000 or 100,000 words. This book was the first draft was 105,000 words. It finished at 100,000
Wow.
words.
Can I just say it doesn't feel like that? I am notoriously picky on the moment a book crosses 300 pages. I'm like, okay, I have to like the author or like the topic because 300 pages is a lot for me to read. This book does not feel as thick as this. It just moves at such a beautiful pace the entire book through.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah. So, but I still didn't want to do another 50,000
Yes.
words. So where it ends, without giving spoilers, where it ends, actually Lucas's story, the original synopsis, which someone will probably, I'll probably put it out there someday in like a special edition, or like this was, kind of the ending, explosive ending, whatever. It was going to go on from where it
Oh.
ended. There was
Hmm.
more to what Lucas was going to do and how the tech was going to come back, and I had to cut all that because I was like, I'm already at 105,000 words, and I felt like when I got there, you make a judgment call as a writer where
Hmm.
you're like, okay, I feel like this is a good place where this version of the story for it to end.
Hmm. Have you thought about taking what you have for your premise here that came after and writing part two or sequel
Yeah,
to
I
Treatment Room?
have been asked. Yeah. So well, there's a lot of maybe nots
Yes.
as I think about we were talking about marketing. So the other marketing
Hmm.
reality is how well is this book selling?
Hmm.
It's done very well and since release, but can I keep up that momentum? That's
Hmm.
giving me a little bit of thought as to what do I want to do for the next book? Because if it does really well and people are asking what's going to happen, what happened to Lucas, I want to know more, then I'll probably write the book too.
Hmm.
Right now, I'm working on an outline for a book that's set about 20 years in the future. So I could technically come
Ooh.
back and try and mix something up there. But I want to advance the technology one more step. So I want the
Hmm.
virtual reality to be one step more dangerous, so to speak.
Ooh.
Different premise, of course. And and I find it and just see what will happen with a story that's just a little bit more, if this machine is in every household, then what
Hmm.
happens? And
Oh.
that's part of my research. What are our rights as a human? Can this VR tech sell
Hmm.
my personal experience? If I spend every day doing
Yeah.
this in VR, can that now be sold? Can I be manipulated through VR? What are the human rights associated with? So these are all the things I'm doing research on to kind of see what I want to do with my next book. And Yeah, I'm probably going to set it 20 years in the future. That's kind of where I'm leaning to. And sort of like I did with the Genesis Project, the treatment room. If you've read the Genesis Project, then there's like an Easter egg. They're not
Hmm.
actually linked, but there's like an Easter egg if you've read it where you understand where it came from. And then I'll probably do the same with the next book that I write.
Hmm. I'm really excited. Again, I think that this is a fascinating realm of speculative fiction, and especially when you apply like good thriller principles as you have, it's a rip-roaring page turner that you just want to dig further and further because you do such a wonderful job of it's almost like setting up a decline for the reader
Yeah.
where the track is to keep going deeper and deeper into the story and you want to go deeper and deeper into the story with each page.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the part that works so well as a psychological thriller because you're really getting farther and farther into Lucas and Amara's minds and the situation going around them.
Yeah. And him losing himself as a psychologist, I found writing to be fascinating because
Hmm.
he recognizes he knows what's happening.
And he
He
keeps
thinks he's in
justifying it.
control. He thinks he's in control, but he's not. And as a reader, you're like, "Oh, dude, what are you doing? Please stop." But
Well,
he's like, "No, I'm getting into his, he's justifying everything that's happening with I'm one step away from knowing the truth of everything that's going on." Yet it's bringing him closer to the tragedies
mhm.
that befall him.
It I like to use the word tragedy because I think I'm a fan of the Greek tragedies. The Oresteia by Aeschylus is one of my favorite just like pieces of fiction. I think that it's fascinating to see as like post Trojan War, this is the fallout in Greek society. I think that having a tragic element to a story can just add so much depth and pathos, and you've done that
Mhm.
well here. I especially like Lucas does rationalize the entire time this is what he's doing. W Was it a research you did as an individual on psychologists and psychology, or did you have friends that you bounced stuff off of when you were working on this?
Both. The first draft was me.
Hmm.
I mean, I did some psychology in college and stuff, so I've always been fascinated with human psychology. So,
I mean, you're a
a
writer. It's
lot,
kind
yeah,
of.
yeah. Well, not every writer is a psychological. Some people, like geopolitical or whatever, if they love geopolitics and they write action thrillers, then that fits well. I like the
Hmm.
psychology of characters, which is what fits well here. So, the first draft was me. I wrote the
Hmm.
first draft as I saw it, and then I have one of my beta readers is a psychologist.
Hmm.
So she went through it and then she was like, oh, you know, oh, he would probably do this, or the company
Hmm.
couldn't do this way. Like his company couldn't just suspend him without,
Hmm.
justification or however it was. I'll caveat that with I didn't take all of her advice because there is, you do need to have some
Hmm.
you have to go outside the realm of possibility a little bit when you're dealing with fiction. It's just like with crime thrillers, the
Hmm.
detective, no, not everybody knows someone, that they can call to have those fingerprints around the next day. And their real jobs are quite boring most of the time, but we use a little creativity to, boost or move things faster. So it's the same with this.
Hmm.
A lot of the psychology and stuff was done with the psychologist helping me with some of it, but then a lot of it was on my own as well.
That's really cool. Again, I think that it's really neat to hear how your process with the story, having the beta reader feedback, helped you add these little extra layers as you went through. Is that
Mhm.
always been a part of your process, or is that something you did differently with the treatment room? I'm curious, has
Mhm.
on whether or not your process has essentially just changed or evolved as you've gone through.
It evolves as I find people that are willing to help, I guess you could say, because it's not, I may want an expert in a certain field, but like when I wrote the Genesis project, I would have loved to have a soldier who was in special operations who had post-traumatic stress and would, but that's easy, that's hard to find. You can't
Yeah.
just like Google and start asking, "Hello, would you, mind reading this book about all this trauma and stuff?" So,
Sorry,
um,
I think that it's fascinating. Again, being able to essentially have a degree of collaboration with the
yeah.
reader, literally, because too many times people think of writing as a very solo activity, whereas I think the best creativity really does come from having multiple voices at least giving input as you're working on something.
Do you take input on your stories when you're in the first drafts, or because for me this is like for first draft nobody's reading,
No.
second draft nobody's reading, third draft my developmental editor gets a copy, and that's when I actually start letting people read it and I talk about it.
Yeah, I'm a three draft writer typically.
Okay.
So my first draft, no one looks at. Second draft, I'm very fortunate in that my wife is really good at giving me developmental feedback. So
Nice.
I get her opinion and then I go through and make the final edits.
Nice.
But my first couple books, I got more feedback on as I was going through it. Now, probably when I write something other than my little mini novella pulp thrillers, then I'll probably want some more feedback. But at this point, it's far more, is the action actiony enough?
Yeah. Yeah, well, good on you. I find it hard to share too early for sure. It's
I'm trying to remember the name. All of the writing books I've read just like sit in one collective pile in my brain and I can never like sort through them. So if I stare in the distance, as I say, I read, my brain's like trying to go over the list of titles. But there was one book where they were talking about you don't kill the baby and you need to protect that initial. Oh, I think it was Creativity Inc. by Ed Catmull. He made a comment about when they're first pitching story ideas. When it's that first idea, you give it some criticism, but you want to wait until it's strong enough to defend itself as a concept before you really start working on it. Because if it's still too small, if it's still very cellular, any picking it apart just tears it apart. It can't exist long enough to
yeah.
get legs at that point.
So are you saying this author suggested sharing the pitch essentially with someone to see what they thought, but not so much that it killed
Well,
the idea?
yes. Well, and the case of Pixar, it's because like it's the story trust. They all like get together and hey, these are our five ideas. What do you
Oh,
think
right.
about this? So very different situation than writers individually, but I think that there's something to don't share the idea until it's you know enough about it to defend it. I can definitely say the times I've shared the idea when I've only got like two sentences for it, it dies very quickly because I don't know how to fix any of the immediate potholes that people ask about.
Well, it's funny. I've heard, I haven't tried it yet, but if you've ever used like Facebook ads, you can, I've heard people say that they essentially click test a story idea. So you'll
Oh.
have, and this is how they decide whether or not it's marketable or if the idea no one's going to want to buy it. So they'll have like basically a flat background color, orange,
Hmm.
whatever, and then they'll have the blurb, not the blurb, but like a pitch, essentially, very short pitch like you would on an ad, and they'll
Hmm.
run it. And if they get good click-through rates and good link clicks, then they're like, okay, this is a good idea. If nobody cares because Facebook put it out there and it's getting like no return, then they don't write the book. They try and, either pitch it in a different way or sell it differently. So I thought that was a fascinating way to approach your next book. They hadn't even written the book. It's like, is my
Yeah.
story idea marketable? And
Yeah.
they have like a vague idea. Instead of writing the book and finding out later that it's not
Hmm.
marketable, they'll spend a little bit of money up front and let the social media essentially tell them whether or not it's a marketable idea.
I'm really torn between I love that idea because it saves all of that sunk cost of I wrote something no one cares about.
Yeah.
And is it just does it kill like that one in a thousand idea that people don't know that they want until they read it? But
Yeah.
I mean that's the hard part when it comes to
Yeah.
it. Those are always the
Yeah.
fraction. Nine times out of ten, the thing people know they want is what you want to make. But
Yeah, and you
that's
never know in our industry, the market shifts so fast. Like how long ago was it where if someone said you can't combine romance and fantasy, no
I
one's going to read
know.
that. Like that wasn't that long ago. And now it's all you can get. So whoever wrote Romantasy prior to the big, now this big thing
Hmm.
going on, they're like they're like super happy. Told you.
Okay,
So
so
there's
like
something to say about that, right?
I had fun. You'll find this fascinating. I sat down and was like, okay, what would men's adventure fiction have to do? What can it learn from how romantasy exploded? And I asked ChatGPT, give me assessment on I use prompt cowboy. I came up with a very intricate prompt of why did romantasy work? What happened? And it gave me like actually a really great diagnostic on here are the main bullet points for what contributed to it. And I didn't realize how much of it was circumstantial. we had the pandemic that happened, and we had the rise of TikTok. And those two things, right around the same time, contributed to this whole genre exploding.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating. I was like, okay, what can we learn from that? And I mean, there are some things you can learn from, but at the end of the day, I was at the Midwest Mystery Writers Conference and they made a comment like romantasy exploded. Everyone wants that explosion to happen for whatever their genre is, but it's
Yeah.
always organic. You
Yeah.
can't plan for it. Like publishers can't market for, oh, this is going to be the next big thing. All they do is look at what happens and then try to catch up.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a sad reality of the industry. And in a lot of cases, it's why so many authors, publishers will bet on an author and then unfortunately destroy careers in a sense. You've heard that story where this author that thought were going to be big, they gave them
Hmm.
a big advance. They put the story out. The story hit crickets because the publisher was wrong, and now
Hmm.
everyone associates that author with a failed author, and then their career is essentially over. That sadly happens a lot more than we think. Everyone thinks when you get a publishing contract, you're like, you're done, you're set, it's great, and it's just not. It's so far from the truth.
I think it's kind of shocking realizing just how much it all is a guess and how it all is just a bet. Annie
Yeah,
Duke's book, Thinking in Bets, is still one of my favorite books on like cognitive decision making. And it really just changed the way I viewed it, which is we really do make bets. We're guessing
yeah.
all the time. And sometimes our guesses turn out well. Example, The Treatment Room is a
Thank you.
fantastic read. If you're guessing it's going to be a good read, I'm going to give you more validation and say it is. You need to get a copy. Mark, one of my favorite questions to ask writers is if you have a writing routine, and if so, what does it look like?
I do, but it depends on where I'm at in the process. All
Hmm.
of my routine is based on time. So I
Hmm.
have time allotted. I have an app where I use time. So like an hour and a half is writing, an hour is editing, 30 minutes of marketing. This is like my everyday. So I always have that allotted, but I'll move thing allotments around depending on where I'm at
Hmm.
in the phase. So my
Hmm.
writing routine will be often sporadic as far as, and this is why I use a timer because I can start and
Hmm.
stop whenever I want to. My jobs, I'm kind of coming and going all the time. So I can't
Hmm.
say I wake up at 5 a.m. and
Hmm.
start writing. I usually wake up at 5 a.m. and take the dogs out, and then I teach fitness. And then, and then I may end up with some between clients or whatever, I may end up with time to write. And so it's very sporadic and all over, which is why I use writing the timer. So some
Hmm.
days I'll do a lot, some days if I'm done, like right now, I'm mostly into just, my book, The Treatment Room just released. So I'm doing a lot
Hmm.
of marketing and reaching out for that. I'm outlining a little bit. So I'll spend a half hour a day or whatever thinking about outlining. But other than that, I'm not, uh, I'm not doing a lot of writing. So I use that writing time for something else.
Hmm.
When I am writing, I like the timer and I try to actually stop in the middle of a scene so
Hmm.
that when I pick up the next day, I'm in
Uh,
something exciting enough
uh-huh.
to get me going just a little faster. It doesn't happen all the time, but there was a time books ago where I would like try and finish a chapter in a certain amount of time or a chapter a day or whatever. And then you realize that every it's a slog to come in the next day and be
Hmm.
like, okay, now I'm in someone else's viewpoint, or now I'm starting at a lower moment because the tension went high, 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 and now there's a little bit of a drop if I change
Hmm.
points of view or whatever. So I have started now. I'll stop in the middle of action and be like, oh, I
Hmm.
love the scene, love it, and pause. We'll continue tomorrow because I can't wait to write this tomorrow. And then tomorrow, when I spend an hour and a half doing it, it's like, it's that much faster to be productive.
I love that because I think that that is an underrated tool. I suspect a lot of writers have neurodivergent tendencies. That's just my guess based on some of the writers I've talked to. And having that little thing to help kickstart and make you want to go back to it
Yeah,
makes all the difference in the world. I love the Hemingway quote, leave something in the well, essentially.
yeah,
Don't drain yourself
yeah,
because then it's impossible to get back to it.
yeah. Yeah, how can you have writer's block when you're in the middle of action or it's not the story for you? If you have writer's block at that point, then there's something wrong with your story. You might want to think it through a bit more.
That's actually really, really a great point, though, because I have found the when I get stuck at an action beat, And I'm like, it's supposed to be exciting here. Why isn't it? Usually there's something structural that is a problem with one of the characters. And that's why when I hit that action beat, it just rings tinny when I try writing it. And so then I have to do the backwards motion. Wait, it's like scrolling, scrubbing backwards. Where's the spot here that things
Yeah,
fell out of joint?
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Mark, this has been a delightful conversation. Where can people go to learn more about you and the treatment room and the rest of your books?
Thanks. Yeah, this has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it. So thanks for having me on. The book itself, you can get anywhere in paperback, hardcover. So it's available anywhere. Ask Your Librarian is a great place to have them order it in. Bookstores won't stock it, of course, but they can order it. Amazon for the digital. It's exclusive to Amazon right now for digital. My website to find more about me, Mark P.J. Nadon. You can Google it and it'll take you to my website. That's where you'll find my podcast and links to my other books and all that.
And I will link all of that in the show notes. Mark, thank you again for coming on the show.
Thank you.